Welcome to Built with Purpose. I am Chris Fay, and this is the show where vision meets execution and leadership leaves a legacy. From design studios to innovation hubs and product lines to skylines, we meet the people building more than great companies. They're creating culture, driving impact, and shaping what's next. These are the stories and strategies behind how the world gets built with purpose. All right, everybody, welcome to Built with Purpose. I am your host, Chris Fay. I am excited to have some friends on the show today that are in the tech space and partners that we're working with, but the folks from Client Savvy. And actually, today, we're introducing them as Client Savvy that is now a ClearlyRated company. So I'm excited to kind of dive in a little bit on that. So Ryan Suydam, and I love the pronunciation. We'll talk about that in a minute. Is one of the founders of Client Savvy and is now CX architect at what will be ClearlyRated. And then Tim Asimos is the head of growth in charge of making it rain at the organization. So gentlemen, thank y'all for taking some time and hanging out today.
Yeah, thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris. Excited to be here.
Should be fun. So let's. I'll start with a quick icebreaker question, and I'm just going to go by nature of where you are on my screen here. So Tim, I'll maybe ask you first, and Ryan maybe second. So, favorite place you've ever visited, and if you had to live anywhere else other than North Carolina, where would it be?
So I live in Virginia.
Oh, Virginia. Sorry. Well, there you go.
It's okay. Man, favorite place I've ever visited. This doesn't make me sound sophisticated, but it's real, and I'm a very real person. It's Universal Orlando.
Oh man,
I'm a theme park junkie. My teenage boys are as well. I've trained them well, and our family collectively, outside of the beach, it's our favorite place to vacation. We absolutely love it down there. So,
man. So how many times have you been to Orlando?
Oh, I've been to Orlando over a dozen times, probably. We did the mouse a bunch when they were younger. I think we've been to Universal 5 or 6 times, and we're planning to go back in September. They've got a new theme park opening this month called Epic Universe, and we are beyond excited to check that out. So we're headed there in September.
Oh, that's so cool.
And where would I live?
Yeah, where would you live?
Orlando.
Yeah, I was about to say, if it's Orlando, it's
the
Magic Kingdom, man. I'm going to get a little worried.
I've always teased that's where I would move. I don't know if I would actually. I think it would change. It would change it if we lived there. We wouldn't be going to the theme parks every day. So it would be different. So I don't know. I mean, I think somewhere close to the beach, the ocean. I'm from Hampton Roads, Virginia Beach area, and love to go to the Outer Banks of North Carolina. So I would say somewhere warm and on the ocean.
Okay, awesome. All right, Ryan, what's up, man? Favorite place you've been, and where would you live?
Yeah, probably the coolest vacation I ever went was we found this awesome 70-acre private estate Verbo on the best surf beach in Costa Rica in Playa Grande. And about 20 of us in the family all went down together and did 10 days. And that was probably my favorite 10-day vacation somewhere. That was pretty amazing. In terms of where I would live, if not here, and I would absolutely say Plovdiv, Bulgaria, which is a very unusual thing to say, but employee number 2 back in 2005 was from Plovdiv, Bulgaria, and I started going over there 20 years ago, once or twice a year, and I just fell in love with it's the oldest city in Europe, 7,000 years old. The culture is great, the food's great, the climate's great, wonderful wine. So Bulgaria is Europe's undiscovered gem. If you haven't been, I would definitely recommend going to Bulgaria.
Man, so that was, you said that was employee number 2 was
employee
from
number 2 was,
and that's what introduced you to it.
Yeah. Employee number 1 was a Bulgarian immigrant in the U.S. and he just happened to be employee number 1. And back in our early days, bootstrapping this thing, I was talking about how expensive developers are, and he goes, "Oh, I might be able to find you someone in Bulgaria." So employee number 2 was 6 years of experience with a master's degree in computer science, and he was $4 an hour.
Oh my gosh.
Wages aren't that way anymore.
Unfortunately
They've
not,
come a
right?
long way in 25 years, but yeah, I built a really strong team over there. So we still have about a dozen folks in Bulgaria all these years later, and great people, great country. So
Wow, that's so cool. Yeah, honestly, a place that I've never been, and just until you just said it, it's now on the list, man.
yeah,
It's great. It's crazy to think, like we think stuff in the US is old sometimes. And then you go to Europe and you're like, we're just like a speck and
yeah,
just a speck. Like the perspective that you see of these older structures and the history is just unbelievable, man. All right. Bulgaria is on my list. I love
all
that.
right.
That is so cool. Well, so man, there's a lot that I want to kind of chat with you all about. So, obviously, client savvy. I want to kind of hear a little bit about what client savvy does and kind of where you all focus, and then we're recording this on a Friday, and Wednesday, 2 days ago, you all just announced a pretty major acquisition of you joining forces with ClearlyRated. So those are two huge things. So let's kind of just first start with. Let's start with just client savvy and what you all do. I mean, tell us a little bit about like what the company does and where you focus, and let's take it from there.
Yeah, Chris. I'll put my answer to all those kind of together in one. I started my career in architecture. I graduated from NC State University. I'm a disappointed father with two kids at UNC Chapel Hill. Not sure how that happened, but I graduated from NC State University with a degree in architecture, and I started out at a small architectural firm, Phillips Architecture, right at 25 years ago. Mike Phillips, my co-founding partner and a primary investor, he ran an amazing firm that just knew how to print money. And it wasn't by profiteering, it was by deeply understanding how to create value for clients. There was, to this day, all these years later, it's, and I've worked at some really great firms. Phillips Architecture really had it figured out. What does it mean to take amazing care of clients and deeply understand what value looks like for them? So, I was a young, more technical oriented guy, and all the stuff like empathy and, listening are kind of mysterious to me. And I kind of joke, if you went back 20 years and told my young wife and mother at the time I'd one day be the guy teaching empathy and listening for a living, they would have laughed you out of the room. I wanted to figure out, like, what was this? Like, what did Mike have figured out? And can we systemize that? Can we make it a process? Can we make it scalable? Can we make it repeatable? So that was the origin of Client Savvy. What was really trying to figure this thing out. And when I say Phillips Architecture was an amazing firm, these guys were consistently running effective multipliers in the 5.5 range. I mean, they really had it figured out. So that's what we did was really start trying to understand what are the mechanisms and the processes. And we built a whole lot of stuff in the early days before we figured out what really stuck. And it was really this foundation of listening to our clients. If we just deeply understand what our clients want, if we listen to them well, and if we listen throughout the course of these long and complex project journeys, then we can be better stewards of what they're asking us to do. So that led to the invention of our client feedback tool, and which launched in August of 2007, which I could say was a spectacular time to try to launch a product into
Just
the
start a company in
AEC
2007.
space. Yeah.
Right.
It was a spectacular time. But
Yeah.
it was actually fascinating because, 2006, 2007, times were great. Everyone was busy. And all of a sudden, the world slammed to a stop. And people were like, we need work to keep our people busy. And we have competition, at the time we did some research. We found that 37% of AE firms were pricing work below cost at least half of the time, just trying to get work in the door and keep people busy. And how do you compete when a third of your competitors are pricing work below cost? You have to compete on value because there's no way you're going to compete on price. So our early clients were the firms that recognized we got to do something different. We can't solve the problem the way everyone else is solving it and keep ourselves in business.
Well, and probably I would imagine that, when you're starting a company, I remember back in that time frame, I was working for a regional general contractor, and it had us. I was actually our first director of business development, because prior to that, it was our president and CEO that was doing all the work. And it was interesting at that time to invest in business development and try and go find work. But what it had us do as a company, and probably much like this, is really reflect back on, like, what is our unique value proposition? Where should we be focused? And prior to that, you had so much work that was just kind of coming in the door, and you were trying to manage it with all that you could. And then, I think it was one of the things that ultimately kind of set the foundation for companies to be a lot more intentional around how they add value and differentiate it. So I'm curious, on the Philips architecture side, kind of going back to that, did they, like, so you developed a platform to help listen to customers throughout this project lifecycle. Was Philips doing that just in more of kind of a manual, like, groundswell effort? Like, what did you see at Philips that kind of led you to believe that really listening and servicing the clients was the right mix, and that technology, that you saw something that technology could help solve?
Yeah, I mean, it was very organic at Philips Architecture because of the strength of culture. Every now and then you find a leader in your life that's like, wow, this is just someone who's different. And Mike Phillips was one of those leaders. Every Monday he would buy lunch for the whole company, and it was a joke. It was 1 hour of Monday, and it was a church of the client. It was 10 minutes of business and logistics and coordination, company updates. And then it'd be Mike at the whiteboard with a dry erase marker for, 50 minutes. And he was just preaching about how to create value, how to take care of clients every week, every Monday, without fail, every Monday for an hour. Mike was just talking about, here's how we create value and take care of clients. And so that was just, year after year after year, that was pervasive in the culture. And then, based on that success, the company's growing, you're hiring new people, and how do you integrate them? How do you drive accountability? How do you start putting measurement? One of the things Mike always said, always quoted, some of the pundits who wrote all the books, measure what matters, and what's measured improves. That's the Hawthorne effect. So there was this culture, there was this mindset, this vibe as a company, but we were lacking that infrastructure to put measurement on it and really drive it home. So as great as the company was, once we put that measurement in place and once we started driving that accountability, with the same number of staff, their total net profit tripled in 2 years. So good culture gets you a long way, but when you start adding some process and rigor to this topic of client experience, I didn't even know what client experience was when we started Client Savvy. It was actually several years later, a client of mine told me that what we were doing was CX, or client experience. I'm like, oh. So it just started organically. It's like, it makes sense. And then it evolved into measuring, testing, tracking results, seeing the impacts it made. And now we've worked with over 700 AEC firms. So it's been fun.
And so obviously you came out of the architecture space, and you've kind of developed this piece of technology for that space. I mean, curious, like, there's lots of other professional services firms out there. Like, what's got you really honed in on this kind of AEC environment versus having something more not plain, right, but more generalized that can go across different industries? Like, what do you see in AEC that makes this such a good niche for the business? Because 2007, and you've been in business 20 years almost, and so something's working. So what is it about that industry that's got you keeping focused there?
Yeah, and I'm going to answer 2 parts, because this also goes back to the question you asked about our new partnership with ClearlyRated. So we started in AEC because that's what we knew. We actually started in A, and as a architecturally trained professional myself, it pains me to give engineers and construction the credit, because they've gone further than the architects have. There's something really unique in professional services where you've got really intimate relationships between the service professional and the client. You know, I'm a huge loyalist to Marriott. I'm a huge loyalist to you know, certain brands. And I'm almost lifetime platinum at Marriott. I'm at 800 stays. I don't know a single person at Marriott, so there's no individual responsibility or accountability for my experience as a customer. Professional services, it's all about having a professional that has individual responsibility for my experience as a client of the organization. So that's a really unique perspective. We've also worked with 30 of the Am Law 200 law firms. We've worked in accounting, staffing, technology. ClearlyRated, our new a collaboration with them. They were the other niche player doing CX work in professional services, and they were in all the spaces we weren't. So they have a no footprint in AEC, but they were big in staffing, accounting, recruiting. They were growing into to legal. So we were competing a little bit here and there, but really our footprint was pretty minimally overlapped. So um, of all the possible people who might acquire Client Savvy, I'm so glad it was ClearlyRated, because they get professional services the way that we get professional services. And the big CX companies like the Qualtrics and Medallia in Moment, um, you know, they can do all kinds of cool stuff at scale with big data, but they don't understand the unique nature of a engineer who's a seller doer, who's a project manager part-time, who's a principal part-time, who's doing BD part-time, and knows her 27 clients, by first name, and they send each other Christmas cards, and there's a relationship there. And if you don't treat that relationship with the uh, care and caution that needs to happen, if you try to do CX or send surveys and it feels generic and mechanical and uh, uh, consumer oriented, it's completely crosswise with the whole nature of the relationship.
Yeah,
So
it can almost not devalue it, but to some extent, if they're used to a relationship and then they have some sort of transactional thing coming their way, it's in conflict with the kind of the values. So Tim, kind of on your side, I mean, I like, kind of Ryan and founding this company, and I've got my own kind of just general theories about this and professional services, but like today, kind of being head of growth and trying to carry this 20-year-old business now a part of ClearlyRated kind of into the future. I'm curious how much you see the market being different from kind of where when Ryan founded the company and initially initiated this in 2007 versus kind of where we are today and in the future. Like, is there a significant difference? Is it still foundationally rooted in these relationships, and are expectations different? Does having a tech platform like you all, is it more embraced today than it might be? So kind of what does today look like as you see it and being charged with growth?
So yes and no. I think it's very different. So I came into the AEC industry in 2006. Started at an engineering firm. I was head of marketing there. Then was with an agency for more than a decade before I joined the Client Savvy team. So I've been in and around AEC for the better part of my career, for almost 20 years. It'll be 20 years next year, right? It's changed a lot, and yet many of the same biases, assumptions, traditions that I think have hindered the industry overall from growing outside of the actual work they do, I think are still there. I think we have an easier time selling our product now than we probably did 20 years ago, than we probably did 5 years ago. There's more and more people every day coming to us looking for a platform like ours to do what our platform does. So definitely a lot of progress, but I still think the majority of firms in the industry think that they already listen to clients because they talk to them regularly throughout the project experience, and they believe that they're delivering on their brand promise, and they believe that they're best in class, not because they're measuring it, as Ryan said, but because they just think that they are, right? It's an aspiration. It isn't anything that they have kind of put process behind. So I think there's a lot of room for this industry to grow. I think it's growing. I think it's improving. It's evolving. I think more and more, I think as we see a lot of leadership transition, just talking to a firm yesterday, they got a new CEO taking on, and he's got a big technology initiative. He wants to kind of modernize a lot of things that they're doing. So I think we're headed absolutely in the right direction. I just think there's a lot of room to grow. And if you talk to anyone in AEC marketing or business development, they would tell you the same thing. We've made progress, but man, we're still behind other industries. We're still having to make a case for things that virtually every other industry on the planet are already doing and have been doing for years. So we're lagging, but we are also at the same time making a lot of progress from where we were, certainly when Client Savvy started, and definitely in my time in the industry.
To Tim's point there, Gartner research has published that 89% of businesses have a formalized voice of customer program, and it's like 10% in AEC. So just another metric. Everyone is doing it. It's just a matter of time before everyone in AEC is doing it as well. So those early adopters and innovators are the ones that are really positioning themselves to be more effective and successful by finding some of those competitive edges that 90% aren't finding right now.
Yeah, no, man, it makes perfect sense. I mean, just kind of coming from the industry, I mean, just knowing that, all the various stakeholders and the contractors and the subcontractors and subconsultants and engineers and owners and developers, there's all these networks that have to come together to ultimately create a successful project. I mean, it's a full-time job just managing the relationships, let alone, trying to really be intentional about feedback. And so, one thing I remember when we were talking, a little bit earlier, we were talking, I think that when most of us think about client feedback and at an AEC project, our immediate mindset goes to, cool, at the end of the project, we wrap everything up. There's a survey that we send out that gathers feedback from all the individuals or companies on how that project went. And it's really kind of more of a retrospective. And, it's kind of like, if we do a software installation, at the end of the install or training, you want to survey how things went. But I actually learned it's really more about the experience and the project life cycle, and not kind of the post-mortem of the project. So talk to us a little bit about that. I mean, obviously your technology empowers that and enables that, but why is that important? And why is it, when most people are just thinking about a post-project survey, you all are actually thinking about engagements throughout the life cycle. So talk to me a little bit about that and what you've seen work.
I'm going to tee up Tim for this one, because this was actually a really interesting one we were just talking about yesterday. We get feedback even in the sales process after discovery calls with our clients. And Tim got some really interesting feedback yesterday, and that spurred us to go in and do an analysis today of what are the key themes that we're hearing in the sales process, and what can we do to make the sales process better. So Tim, you want to share your experience with that? And
yeah, I think the post-mortem, I often, and I usually pick on Hilton, but I just got one from Marriott yesterday or two. So that hotel survey that we all get, 2 or 3 days after we checked out, we don't take it normally. And I like Ryan, I'm a Marriott loyalist. I love Marriott. I haven't taken the survey, and the reason is twofold. Number one, any issue I had while I was there, they can't solve it. I don't believe anyone on the other end is really listening to me. I think they're just collecting aggregate information. And I don't necessarily believe that my feedback is going to improve the next experience I have with that particular hotel chain. So that's often why I think people don't respond to surveys. But what our value proposition is really different. Ryan's already talked about just the intimate nature of the relationships between client and company and project manager and project executive and principal and client. And so asking early and often throughout a very long project life cycle is so important, because you can't solve any issue that gets identified when the project's over. And the whole idea behind client feedback and client listening for us is ultimately about elevating the client experience, always raising the bar, raising expectations of the client. And so when you can get feedback early, pre-construction, right after a project kickoff, halfway through the project, 3/4 of the way through the project, any issue that you can identify, you have an opportunity to improve the client experience at certain points throughout the project life cycle. And so I think that's really, really important. Ryan mentioned the example of us. I mean, we have clients that are sending out feedback requests after a proposal. We even had one recently that got some feedback from that survey and actually resubmitted their proposal and ended up winning based on the feedback they were given. And in our case, which is pretty awesome, in our case, like yesterday, this is just sort of helps you get into the mind of the customer. But I had what I thought was a pretty good conversation with a prospect, and I did sense a vibe, and I sensed some frustration, and I couldn't tell, like, was I overwhelming this person with information? Was I not being, like, I don't know, was I not engaging enough? Like, was there something about my dialogue that was giving her frustration? And in the survey, she literally said, I was frustrated because I was like getting bombarded with distractions and I wanted to focus on the conversation, and it was bothering me that, like, I couldn't focus on Tim. And it was a relief, number one. And number two, like, okay. And then there was feedback around, like, yeah, lots of, like, the buying signals, if you will, really positive things, some insights into, like, how we're positioned with that. Hopefully she's not listening, so she doesn't, but you know what I'm saying? Like, you get the idea, right? So it's those nuances of feedback. I think there's the assumption that clients will tell us when there's something wrong. And yeah, if there's a screaming 911, you're right. But as you build these personal relationships, a lot of times project managers, principals, they're friends with their clients. They worked with them for years. They go on golf outings. They meet up with them at conferences. It's hard for them face to face to tell you challenging feedback. And so the nature of our platform enables not only for them to have sort of a non-threatening way to give feedback, but the nature of our scale, we've patented and trademarked the CXI, Client Experience Indicator. The nature of the scale allows them to very subtly show you when you're falling ever so short of their expectations. In a normal satisfaction survey, that would just be that middle dot on the screen. They're satisfied. You'd think nothing of it. But when it's 1/10 of a point below expectations, even without a comment, the client's subtly saying, yeah, you could have done a little bit better. And I think what all of our clients have in common, the smallest to the biggest and everyone in between, is they all want to get better. And by measuring how well you're actually delivering according to client expectations, where you can improve. And there's no perfect project. There's no perfect project manager. Everyone can do better always. And so I think client listening, and of course our platform specifically, enables clients to identify things that would simply just never come up in conversation. It would never come up. So it doesn't replace those conversations. It just creates conversations that might not have ever happened. And it certainly guides the follow-up conversations, because now you have specific areas that you can pinpoint, right? And so instead of the, hey client, how are we doing? I tease all the time. That's like when I ask my 16-year-old, how was your day? I get a real generic answer. Fun.
Oh, good, man. Yeah, we're fine.
It was good. But when you have these categorized questions and you can see, oh, we fell short in responsiveness. Now help me understand how could I be more responsive? What led you? What were you thinking? What was in your mind when you gave us that slightly below expectations? Now I can make tangible improvements to the project, improve the project experience, which we all know the client experience is based around mostly the experience they have throughout the project. So that project, they expect it to be on time, on budget. They expect no one to die on the construction site or get injured. They expect it to look great, but it's that delivery of the project. That's where the differentiation is either won or lost. And that's what our platform ultimately measures.
And just to add some data to what Tim said, we work with the best firms. We've got the data. We know what their net promoter scores are. We work with very high performing firms. And even in that group of clients, last year, 17% of their clients had at least one complaint. So think through the conversations you've had, listeners, in the last couple of weeks with your clients. Have 17% shared with you that piece of friction that they're sitting on?
Right. And that's best in class, Ryan, right? I mean, that's kind of
that's best in class. Right. So until the pain of living with the problem exceeds the pain of confronting the problem, people are going to choose to live with the problem. One of my favorite pieces of feedback one of our customers received, and this is a verbatim, said, "You sucked 5 months ago and you suck today." and boy, there's a lot to unpack there. But I mean, listen to that. You sucked 5 months ago. That's someone telling you,
right,
that I've known for 5 months that this sucked, and I've been in pain for 5 months, and confronting you about it was so uncomfortable, I chose to live with suckage for 5 months. And now that you've asked, I can finally get it off my chest and let you know what I'm feeling. And the beautiful part of the story, and you mentioned something earlier about leadership, and this is just a master class in leadership. This was a national engineering firm. I won't name them, but most of you listening would recognize the name. This poor project manager who got this very challenging feedback. She was understandably a bit emotional. She called me, and I was coaching her through this situation. I said, look, use some empathy here. Why do you think the client said that? You know what you're doing. Are all of your other projects going well? Yeah. All your other clients happy? Well, yeah. Okay. Are you screwing this one up on purpose? It's like, well, no. Well, then it's probably not you. It's probably the client. What's going on with the client? And there was a problem inside the client organization. There was some infighting between two people that was causing the whole project to go sideways. So she shows up, sits down with this director of a state DOT, just approaches it empathetically, helps the director realize the problem is inside the client organization. It's not that I'm a bad engineer. It's that there's some infighting going on. The director said to her, "You're a civil engineer. I didn't hire you to do HR consulting. You just helped me solve or identify and solve a problem in my business I didn't know about." 6 months later, they had grown the account by $1.3 million. The client was a huge raving fan. And what leadership did that was so masterful was they put that young project manager on an airplane and flew her to 14 regional offices to tell her story. And what leadership there is saying is, guys, look, it doesn't matter what the feedback is. This PM who got you sucked 5 months ago, you suck today, she's the hero because she took the feedback. She used empathy and professionalism to respond and react to it, turn the situation around, and look at the impact it's made not only to the client, but to our bottom line, to our brand in the marketplace. That's what we want you doing. And so when leadership can really focus on that, what are the desired behaviors? Client experience starts to take root, and that's what really sets culture of, our job is to be curious, empathetic professionals who always take care of our clients.
Yeah. No, I mean, I love that. And two things a couple things I was thinking about, just, number one is just the act of listening. Right. And the reality is that clients and people want to be heard. Like they if they have concerns, they want to be heard, and even more than being heard, they want to have somebody at least listen to them and take action. And I think, we think about how do these relationships develop? How do you deliver great experiences? I mean, stuff's going to happen, right? Things are going to go wrong. Communication's going to happen, but it's how you deal with that on the back end. So that story of like, we got the feedback, she took it a little bit to heart, went in and learned what was going on, and then took action to try and make the improvement was amazing. But the other thing I was just generally thinking about, and we have it inside of our organization as well, something's not going right with the customer. You have a bad meeting or a bad implementation, and it's so easy for you to sit there and be like, it's got to be me. It's got to be us. I feel like I did such a good job, but somehow, their perception of that didn't go very well. But honestly, how many times there's actually things going on inside of their organization or their lives, right? That you might not be fully privy to, that might be adding additional stress or putting, additional pressure on that individual. And so kind of the seek to understand, hey, I got the feedback. That's the first step. Thank you for giving me the feedback. Like, what's up? Like, where are we doing? Oh, it wasn't me. It's actually the pressure you're seeing in the organization. Well, great. How can I help kind of guide you through that? And so it's great. And it brings me back to we had a call, and I'll meet when we have large customer opportunities. I'll sit in with our sales team a pretty good bit, and we had one meeting with the whole executive team of this really large general contractor out west, and I thought the meeting went great. I was like, dude, we crushed it, man. Like, at the end of that, it was super cool. I think we got a great opportunity. We delivered a really nice roadmap. They seemed to get it and understand. And then we followed back up, and fortunately, we had a follow-up conversation with them, and they were like, we felt like y'all were pushing us way too hard. Like you were pushy. You were kind of moving us faster and kind of forcing us into it. And while we were sitting there thinking that we were being good stewards of their money and their decision making, right, by helping guide them and challenge them a bit, their perception of that was like forcing it on them, which was nowhere near our intention. We were just trying to be good partners. So I think it's amazing. Like, there's all these perceptions that are out there, and the reality is that these perceptions are that person's reality. And the first thing, kind of thinking about what y'all are talking about, is how do we unlock that to get that conversation going? Let's first understand how people are feeling about it, and then we can absolutely take action on trying to figure out a way to improve it. So those are super cool. So a question I've got for you all is, thinking about this personal relationship. So I think about the standard out of the box surveys that would tend to go out from time to time, right? We all get them, the Marriott surveys. So the survey typically comes on behalf of generic company A, right, to this individual. And oftentimes it's not around, it's just a generic experience. Like, what do y'all do differently? Does the survey come from, like, best practices? Does it come from the organization? Does it come from the individual that person's working with? Do the questions change as we kind of migrate through the experience? Like, what are some best practices that you all have seen in that listening?
Yeah. Clients want to talk to their person. They want to talk to them when they have something to say, and they want to say what they want to say. So, cornerstone of client experience is designing everything around the client. One of the cool things Philips Architecture did, they specialized in commercial office interiors. That was their thing. So they made their conference room a sales room, so that their clients, who were landlords who were trying to put tenants in space, could bring tenants and sit in there. And Philips realized, our job isn't to do great design. That's what you have to do. Our job is to help our landlord clients sell space to tenants. So they literally designed their physical office around enabling their clients to be successful. So that's a core tenet of client experience, is absolute client centricity. Well, the same thing applies when you go to something like a survey or voice of client. Do feedback the way the clients want to give you feedback. So they don't want to talk to a generic machine. They don't want to wait till it's over. They want to tell their project manager how the project's going during the project, so that they can get a better project outcome. And I'll often hear, well, hey, will clients really be honest Doesn't it need to come from a neutral third party? And we've done research on that. We found if a survey comes from the corporate machine or some, generic third party, the low score rate is a third of what it is if it's coming directly from the project manager. And if the project manager is the one asking, you get 5 times more open-ended comments. And response rates are higher. So 3 times more problem discovery, 5 times more open-ended comment, and a 20% higher response rate. What does the data tell us? The data tells us clients want to talk. They want to engage with the person who's taking care of them. So, we do a lot of myth busting when we are deploying voice of client programs, because there's all these things we see that we've picked up from the customer world. The way hotels do surveys, the way airlines do surveys. Those don't work in professional services. We've got a completely different rule set. And so we've got to play a different game. And when you play the right game, if you're listening to this and you've tried doing a client survey before and it didn't work, there's 5 simple tests. Did you make sure the person interacting with the client was the one who sent the survey? Did it happen during the project when you had time to respond? Did you focus on outcomes the client cared about, or were you trying to focus on marketing things that you cared about? When the response came in, did you route the feedback directly to the person who could take action on it? And then finally, did that person act on it? If you're doing those 5 things, then voice of client works and your clients love it. We've had customers for over 15 years surveying the same clients over and over and over and over again for 15 years and keeping response rates in the 40% rate.
Wow. Yeah, that's super high.
It only happens if it doesn't feel like a survey. It's got to feel like a project communication to keep us all on track. And when you really make it an extension of how we work together, it's a sustainable tool that's going to enable you to be successful.
Yeah, makes perfect. Well, and also I would imagine just because, in the AEC or the professional services business, oftentimes it's not a one and done relationship, right? I mean, you're actually developing a long-term relationship, high amounts of repeat clientele. And so, this ability, I would imagine if you tracked it, I'm actually, maybe this is a question, this is just maybe my own assumption, is that there's an opportunity that as you continue to send surveys or feedback and take action to improve it, it becomes a bit of a flywheel effect where now your experience response rates could actually go up because the client's like, hey, look, these things are coming my way at the right times from the right person. It's getting back to them and I'm watching them take action. So man, the next time that survey hits or next time this notification hits me, I want to make sure I take it because I know this company is going to take action on it. So, that company that's seeing like 40% response rates, I wonder, I'd be curious, did they start, kind of at a 10 to 15 and then to 20. And then all of a sudden it becomes organic and it becomes part of the expectation where their clients are like, dude, they are listening to us. These aren't just generic surveys. They're taking action on the things that I'm following up on. It's enhancing our relationship. So we're doing it even more and more and more.
Yeah. Across our whole client base, we're seeing a 37% response rate. So
yeah, that's awesome.
So this is not your results may vary. This is what we're seeing as a standard. Early on, response rates might be in the 20-25% because we haven't yet, you haven't yet trained your clients how this works. And when you commit and double down to the follow-up, and that means you need accountability. It means follow-up needs to be trackable. There needs to be metrics on that. When you commit to the follow-up, that's what creates the outcomes. We track follow-up inside our platform. And one of the things we've been able to do, Chris, that's really fascinating is we've been able to track when you document follow-up to feedback, your frequency of low scores from that client, again, is 83% lower than the group that doesn't document follow-up. You want to sell this to your frontline staff? Hey, guys, do you want to, in 2 minutes, get rid of 83% of your client problems? There's a lot of hands that go up.
Yeah, right. And it's simple actions. I mean, it's not rocket science. I mean, it's just simple actions of doing very simple things, in a very common way, and probably making it a part of the DNA, right? And to make it become a habit, right? So it's part of that, and can change such a trajectory of relationships with the clientele.
And Tim can tell you one of the things our clients love most is the support we give them and how to take action.
Yeah. Yeah. Follow up is the example that Ryan gave. That was an extreme one, right? You sucked 5 months ago and you still suck today. Like that's probably on the spectrum. That's sort of maybe one of your worst examples of challenging feedback. But even feedback where there isn't a comment and it's below expectations, or I don't know how to take this, or a lot of folks in the industry, they don't know how to respond. They take it personal, or they don't know what to do with it. So we've basically created guides, coaching guides, and we've got 10 of those, and depending on the scores, an algorithm runs that will suggest one of 10 guides that gives sample scripts, sample conversation points to make, some strategies, some action items for the project manager. That's super helpful. But over a year ago, we rolled out an AI feature which takes all of those best practices into account. But it also takes the scores and the actual comments, and with the click of a button, creates a very human, very sympathetic response that, from my experience, and I do demos almost every day of the week, but Sunday. And although I did one on Sunday night for Australia a few weeks back, but regardless, basically you get about 90 to 95% there. AI is funny no matter how much you train it. I don't use the expression duly noted. So I'll take that out, right, and put my own word in there. But regardless, in about 2 minutes, the project manager clicks the button. There's the response to the client. The whole purpose of the response is to acknowledge, Mr. Client, Mrs. Client, you've been heard. I've heard you. Thank you for sharing this specific thing. Would you have 15 minutes this week for us to talk about it to see how we can address the issue? That's the whole point. You press send, it documents it in the platform. Email goes out to the client with the full results of their survey. So if it was a couple days ago, they can remember, oh yeah, I did give them a challenging score on responsiveness, or oh, that is what I said in the comments. Oh, I did say you sucked 5 months ago. And then you've now started that dialogue. Again, what I said a while ago, and I always have to emphasize this because sometimes people will come to us, with sort of this a little snooty attitude of, well, we prefer a more personal approach with client relationships. And that's a myth we have to debunk. This isn't impersonal. It's very personal. It's just leveraging technology to improve that personal relationship, because now that project manager, instead of asking that open-ended question, now they're very targeted and very specific. And to your point and what Ryan was saying, you're training your clients that this is not the Hilton Hotel survey. I'm actually going to get my life improved. My project outcome is going to get better in real time because I took a few minutes to fill out this very easy survey. And now, that thing I haven't wanted to bring up or haven't thought about to bring up is now going to get addressed, and they're going to make some improvements. So it's like a win. It's a win-win-win. It's a win for everybody.
It's in supplement of and not a replacement of the relationship. I mean, it would be a tool to enhance a relationship and not try and replace human interaction.
It tells you when and where a conversation needs to happen.
Right. Exactly.
And you're not just training clients how this works. You're training your staff how to listen.
Right.
And okay, it might feel a little mechanical when you've got this formal feedback loop, but I've had engineers come up to me after a few years using the platform and say, hey, all this stuff that I learned about, listening to clients, it works on my wife too.
I started sending her surveys, and she's,
Yeah, imagine that. I don't personally think I would want to send out those kind of surveys, but in the professional world, my net promoter might do this a lot more than I really want to be aware of.
You need to have a professional license and a personal license, and the health index. Well, I'm curious. So kind of moving forward, I think about two things. One is just the we mentioned AI and the how technology is moving at this really incredible pace. But then I also think about this new partnership with ClearlyRated, and it's bringing together I would think more horsepower and expertise to help amplify. So like when we think about for you all, or when you all think about kind of the next few years of this journey with what's available in technology, this now much larger partnership that you're a part of, like where do you see this changing? Where do you see some of the innovation coming? Is it new offerings? Is it like a more easy to manage experience? Like what does that look like for you all in the next couple of years?
Yeah, we chose Clearly Rated as a partner because they share our vision. We want to see a world where client experience is an embedded part of every professional services firm. Everybody has IT, everybody has HR, everybody's using an ERP, right? Everyone's using a CRM. We see client experience as one of those pillars that just becomes embedded in the organization, and every firm is going to have it. Guess what? You go outside professional services, 89% do. So we partnered with them because they share that same vision of transforming how an industry works. And together we are the market leader for CX in professional services. Um, and now with the combined resources, we're really leaning in on wrapping our arms around a bigger problem space of client experience. A client feedback is great. It's the foundation of any client experience program, but there's so much untapped potential in that client feedback. We're working on models right now. We just, to all of our clients in the last week, we sent them all a list of, hey, here's the top 20 clients in your list that are most likely to accept a fee increase. I mean, the data is in there. Your clients will tell you when you're over delivering, when you're worth more than what you're charging. You don't ask them that, but you pull it out of the data. So our vision is unlocking more and more business impact from the data that we're getting to enable our clients to thrive. It's professional services, architects, engineers, construction. I mean, noble professions. Go watch any of the movies. The dad is always the cool architect, right? I mean, we're noble professions, and yet when you look at what tech companies are doing in terms of valuations and things like that, we're missing so much value. The founder generation, a boomer, and even older Gen X's are trying to sell the firms that they spent 30 years building and creating, and they're getting multiples of EBITDA, whereas other companies are getting multiples of gross revenue. So we want to unlock the value that's in this industry, and that really comes through the power of deeply embedded client relationships. So that's what we see happening. There's going to be AI, there's going to be integrations, there's going to be automations. There's all kinds of stuff that's going to help make that happen. But the end goal is, are we helping our customers thrive in their business? Because if we do that, and right now, uh, the firms that engage us, they do so because they believe in it, not because they can't live without it. And so our mission is to become one of those can't live without. Can you imagine trying to run a firm without ERP or without CRM or without IT? Like, it would be unthinkable to pull that out. And CX belongs in that same category. And it's only going to get there if we can really focus ourselves on continuously creating value for our clients. So
Well, it's interesting to think about how you transition, not just delivering an experience that can set you apart, but then how can that drive business outcomes to help you grow your business, right? Because I imagine companies that want to grow, they're like, how do I differentiate? Where can I increase my margin? What sorts of customers do I have the very best relationships with, and how do I develop more of those? And so those forward-leaning insights I could see being huge, huge for the industry. So that is super cool. So you mentioned, I do want to just kind of ask on the partnership. I mean, so, you know, Ryan, you mentioned it kind of during our prep here, this partnership. Obviously, there's a lot of super exciting things on it, but it was one of the hardest things that you've done in your business career. And I'm just curious on the personal side, Tim and joining now a larger organization, and Ryan, selling a portion of your organization and partnering in, and what has that been like? And what made that kind of the hardest experience for you?
Yeah, yeah. It's been a really emotional roller coaster for a lot of reasons. I spent 21 years building this thing, so to some degree, it felt like selling my baby. But at the same time, I've looked at the leadership that Clearly Rated has put together, and these are guys who have done multiple times in their career what I've tried to do and haven't been able to do. They know how to go to market. They know how to scale an organization. They know how to accelerate product, and I'm just really excited by having some leaders that have figured out some of the stuff I haven't been able to figure out yet. So, at the end of the day, I did this because it's going to help us accelerate adoption of our vision, which I just shared with you. So, so, uh, um, but then the hard part, if you haven't sold your business before, and that is, on your watch list, man, I got to tell you, there's a lot of nuance. There's a lot of details. The rigor that goes into the financial audits, the audits of your contracts. You know, we've got a great partner we work with, and for 14 years, it's been a lot of handshake deals. It's one of our top sources of revenue, but we didn't have any paper on it, and so that had a pretty dramatic, negative impact on our valuation. So, all those people in your circle, business leaders, telling you always sign a contract, always track this, really formalize. Chris, the stuff you're doing with CRM and ERP, uh, the if my stuff there was cleaner, my last 8 months of life would have been 100 times easier. So, really pay attention to the dotting the I's, crossing the T's, making sure everything is super clean from a book's perspective, a contract's perspective. The more organized you have it, the easier you're going to be, the more valuable you're going to be on acquisition.
Yeah. That's great insight. And honestly, man, I was sitting here thinking about you speaking. I mean, I think the super admirable thing is, and I did a podcast earlier. We were talking about, ego in a CEO or a founder's mindset, and figuring out a way to drop that ego and to make sure you're doing what's best for the clients and for your people and for the company. And I just think about, that's exactly what I hear in your voice is like, man, there's a great opportunity that we have in doing this. And probably the pain in the butt part was just going through the semantics of it and the emotional connection with the business. But you're like, God, look what we can do. We can now further this mission. We can do better for our clients and better for the company, in this partnership. And you still continue to be on that journey. And so what a cool story. And I just congratulations on that. And man, I know it's gonna be an awesome experience. I'm excited.
Yeah, Chris, I'll add from the non-owner standpoint of sort of how I see this. I think the alignment with our vision and where I see us going in the next couple years in the industry with our platform, with now being part of the Clearly Rated family, we're going to continue to educate the industry and to be thought leaders and to challenge status quo and to debunk myths and to keep teaching people every day of the importance of CX, the importance of feedback and listening. And I think that the other challenge that we have, in addition to obviously such low adoption of CX and listening, which is also an opportunity, is now, having our combined companies with more resources and more marketing and brand power. One of the challenges I hear from calls I'll have with prospects is they'll be like, man, I didn't even know a platform like this existed. I hear that weekly. I've been telling Ryan that for months and months and months. I'm like, we gotta focus on marketing. We've poured into our product, which is why it's amazing. We've lagged in our marketing, which is why more people don't know that we exist. And so I see the future as being bright because adoption's increasing. More and more firms are recognizing we need to focus on CX, like safety. It can't just be an aspiration. It needs to have people and process and budget and training and technology in order to make sure it becomes a reality. And also, I think that, we're going to be having more awareness in the marketplace with our combined companies. We just launched a research project with the S&PS Foundation. We're doing the very first of its kind on CX in the AEC industry as a partnership with S&PS Foundation. I'm sure there's going to be people that didn't even know Client Savvy existed, and now we're going to be connected to some really great, powerful industry research. So I'm excited about what's ahead. There's just so much opportunity. And then our clearly rated, as Ryan said, very smart people that are going to give us a lot of the resources and the brain power that we need collectively to be able to advance our vision and ultimately grow our business. So I'm excited.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, what a cool story, man. And I think y'all are going to do an amazing job. I'm excited to watch and see what happens. And so, yeah, I know we're kind of rounding the corner here. And so the last question I typically will ask folks is just a little bit more on a personal level. And both of y'all have these different experiences and these different perspectives, and like y'all have obviously grown this amazing business. But we think about kind of built with purpose and building companies or having a purpose for your individual life. And I'm curious if you had to give me one word that would describe you, right? You can do it as a leader, as a father, as a husband, as a friend, as a founder, as a whatever it is. Like what is one word that you would use to self-describe yourself?
I'm going to pick empathy. And not because I was born with it, but because it's an aspiration, and it's the core of why Client Savvy exists. And it's become my mission personally to grow in that every day.
Love that. That's awesome. Tim?
Oh man, that's tough. One word.
NPS.
I mean, I think maybe steadfast. I'm consistent. I'm the same person, whether I'm in a professional space, whether I'm with my family or friends. Like, there's not multiple sides of me. I am who I am, no matter who I'm with and what I'm doing. And I really tried to be consistent in how I show up at work, how I show up at home, how I show up with friends and family. And so I got that from my dad. My dad was a steadfast, steady Eddie kind of guy. And that's my aim, I think. I want to be steadfast, consistent all the time, always sort of trying to deliver my best to everyone that is depending on me.
Awesome, man. I love that. Well, gentlemen, Ryan and Tim from Client Savvy, now a clearly rated company, a couple days old, man. I just had so much fun talking to y'all today and learning about client success and feedback and this experience. And I mean, honestly, you've inspired me in a couple of areas of our business. And I just want to say thank y'all for taking some time to be on the Built with Purpose podcast. And certainly, if you've got questions about customer experience or feedback and client experience, I mean, these are the guys to talk to. So make sure you check them out. But thank you guys for being on the show today. I really had a lot of fun with you.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us.
Awesome. Okay, thanks for joining me on Built with Purpose. If you have enjoyed today's episode, subscribe, share, and leave us a review. It helps more bold leaders find the show. For resources and show notes, visit our website and connect with me, Chris Fay, on LinkedIn. Until next time, keep building great companies, cultures, and legacies with purpose.